Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And Secretary Yellen, thank you for finally taking the time to appear before this committee. I know that the ranking member has formally requested your presence at least twice within the last few months with no response. Last week, Treasury released the latest data on its emergency rental assistance programs. As you know, $46 billion was made available to supposedly help COVID-impacted low-income families pay off their back rent and to help make mom-and-pop property owners whole in Missouri's 2nd Congressional District and beyond. After more than 9 months and an entire summer of Republicans pushing Treasury, your own data still shows more than 83% of your funds remain unspent, while millions of renters and property owners remain stuck in limbo. It certainly doesn't sound, ma'am, like it has been in your words, expedited program. Now, I have a series of yes and no questions. And because my time is limited, I would appreciate and will insist upon a simple yes or no, ma'am. First, Madam Secretary, do you consider Treasury's emergency rental assistance program to be a success? Yes or no?
Yes.
Amazing. Are you aware that in December of 2020, when Congress appropriated the first $25 billion for emergency rental assistance program, funds were to be used by December of 2021? Yes or no?
Yes.
Do you know why Congress set that initial deadline?
To make sure that funds get to those who are in need.
To get it out the door to renters and landlords ASAP. Madam Secretary, are you aware that just this past March, Democrats extended the time frame for emergency rental assistance program to the years 2022 and, are you ready for this, 2025 for the two respective programs? Yes or no?
Yes, there's significant need, and it will continue.
In 2025, ma'am? I continue. Does extending the program's deadline incentivize grantees to get funds out by extending this? Does it incentivize grantees to get funds out the door, yes or no?
We're doing everything we can, and the states and localities
it's not fast
are
enough.
to get it out the door. As I indicated in my opening statement, in response to a previous question, the infrastructure to do this had to be built, and the pace at which
there was
money is
plenty of
getting out
time
the door
for the infrastructure to be set. Our Fed programs, our PPP programs, all of those expeditiously got money to people who needed them. This is a complete and abject failure.
I'm sorry,
Secretary Yellen, I want to read a quote to you from a Treasury official to journalists on September 24th, and I quote, "To simply take the amount of money that has gone out in the first 5 or 6 months and then compare that to what was allocated for 4 or 5 years is just a meaningless number." Meaningless number. Secretary Yellen, is getting money out the door as soon as possible a meaningless gauge, particularly when we are talking about a pandemic-related eviction crisis, yes or no?
Our objective is to get the money out.
Well, it hasn't gotten out the door. 83% of it is still sitting in the Treasury coffers.
1.4 million.
Ma'am, because my constituents in St. Louis and I do not find it meaningless when we are talking about emergency assistance meant to keep individuals and families in their homes today during a pandemic, not years and years later out to 2025. Moving on. Chairman Powell, with spiking energy prices and bottlenecks in supply chains around the world, there are concerns that there is a rise in inflation may not be as transitory as you originally predicted. Given our current economic situation and the fact that Democrats want to pass trillions and trillions more in spending, what makes you believe we will not see more sustained higher inflation, especially when we've seen significant consumer price increases, et cetera, et cetera?
As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we do think that inflation will remain elevated before these supply-side bottlenecks are resolved, and we think that it will then move back down toward our goal.
Time frame?
Well, it's, these are not things that we control. We don't control.
Not very
the supply of
transitory, sir.
semiconductors,
It
for
seems
example.
pretty dug in.
I would say that this is a function of supply side bottlenecks over which we have no control. But I would say that we do expect in the first half of next year to see some relief, depending on the bottleneck in question, and inflation should move down over the course of.
Not a time to be spending trillions and trillions of dollars. I yield back.